In this video, we're going to look at 7 fatal flaws with what's often referred to as the 4% withdrawal rule. Now, many advisors and YouTube videos, when people want to understand more about how they should take their money out at retirement, they'll often talk about the 4% withdrawal rule. It sounds really simple, but for me, it hides a number of major flaws. See, many people follow this rule without really questioning it. So they think it's a safe way to make their money last through their retirement. But for me, this rule has serious problems that could wreck your retirement. It's worth knowing that it actually comes from American research, some research called the Trinity study from the 1990s. And that study used US stock market data and American assumptions. But the reality is UK inflation, fees, and the tax system differ from those assumptions. And obviously, the world has changed a lot since that study was created, nearly 30 years ago. So in this video, we're going to look at the 7 major flaws with this rule. First, we'll look at how fees and taxes destroy that calculation. Then I'll explain why market timing can ruin everything. And I'll show you why one rate forever just makes no sense at all. We'll also explore the longevity problem and other income sources. Finally, we'll look at why the rule is both too rigid and potentially too cautious, and therefore potentially dangerous. So my name is Zach Hussain, and I'm the founder of financialeducation.co.uk, and I've got over 25 years experience of helping people plan for their retirement. The first major problem is that fees and taxes aren't included. The rules say you can take a certain percentage safely, but it also seems you keep every penny you withdraw from your pot. And that's not how real life works in the UK at all. So your pension provider charges annual management fees to your pension pot. Most modern UK workplace pensions will be under 1% and certainly under 0.75%, which is the auto-enrollment charge. And many people with in their employment schemes, their workplace pensions will be paying probably less than half of that. However, they are still paying charges. And investment funds inside your pension can also sometimes charge their own fees separately, but not always. So you do need to check how your pensions are structured. So some workplace pensions charge even more than that, but these are, very typical amounts, and many actually charge a lot less. Then there's UK tax and everything above your tax-free lump sum. So depending on how you withdraw your money, you can end up paying tax on that because it could be taxed as income when you do take it out. So a typical withdrawal could lose a significant proportion in tax alone. And again, to be clear, it does depend on individual circumstances and how you're withdrawing that money and at what level you're withdrawing that money out at. The rule also doesn't account for any of those UK specific costs. So your actual spendable income is much lower than you may have expected. So within a few years, you could be in serious financial trouble. So the combination of fees and tax changes the calculation by a significant portion, I think. Flaw 2 is that market timing destroys that strategy. So market timing wrecks that rule completely, I think. So when you retire, matters more than most people realise in practice. So imagine retiring just before a big stock market crash happens. Your pension pot drops in value by potentially a very large and worrying amount, but you're still taking the same withdrawal every single year. So this creates a devastating problem for your long-term financial security. What happens is that you find that your pot is smaller, but your withdrawals stay exactly the same. You're taking a much higher percentage than you may have originally planned. Your pot never recovers because you keep draining it each year. So someone retiring a few years earlier or later does much better. They avoid the early crash and their pot grows nicely instead. The UK drawdown portfolios can face this same sequencing risk too. So someone retiring during the financial crisis, so a drawdown hits hardest. This is called sequence of return risk by financial planners. So the timing of market returns is completely outside of your personal control. Yet, what it does is it determines whether this rule works or fails completely for you. A third flaw is using one rate throughout your entire retirement. So the rules say pick a percentage and you stick with that forever. Then adjust that amount for inflation every single year. But the reality is the spending needs change dramatically over several long decades. So UK retirees often spend more between their 60s and their mid-70s. You want to travel, you want to help family, you want to maybe do home upgrades. And these are often called golden years of retirement when you're fit and you're healthy. But later in retirement, your spending naturally drops quite a lot overall. You're less mobile and stay closer to home much more. Holidays probably become less frequent and less expensive over the years. Your lifestyle probably becomes a bit quieter and costs much less than before. And then spending might rise again if your care needs start to change. But that's often covered by other assets or state benefits. So using one fixed rate ignores how retirement actually works in practice. Inflation adjustments should vary yearly, not stay fixed at one rate. You end up either spending too little too early or spending too much later, and neither outcome is what you want from your hard-earned pension. Longevity creates the fourth major flaw with this American rule. See, the original research assumed retirement lasts exactly 3 decades, and that assumption came from US data, not UK-specific life expectancy. But many UK people now live well beyond that time frame completely. So life expectancy has increased significantly since that rule was first created. And UK life expectancy means retirement can last well beyond those expectations. So someone retiring in their 50s faces even longer planning horizons. So retiring early means planning for 35, maybe even 40 years of retirement. And women especially tend to live a bit longer. Therefore, the original assumption suggested is even more out of kilter. So if you follow this rule but live longer, financial disaster potentially strikes. Your pension runs out while you're still very much alive. So you're left depending entirely on the state pension income alone. And that's not always going to be enough for a comfortable lifestyle in retirement. So the rule simply wasn't designed for these longer modern time frames. You need a completely different approach if you're retiring quite early, or if you have good health and strong family longevity patterns. You do need to take a step back and think whether that rule is going to work for you. The fifth flaw is ignoring other income sources you might have. See, the rule assumes that your pension pot is your only retirement income, but most people have the state pension coming in weekly, and a full new state pension provides a basic income level. So this reduces the amount that you need from your pension pot significantly. Some people will also have final salary pensions from previous employers, and these provide a guaranteed income for your entire lifetime in retirement. And others may have rental income from buy-to-let property investments, or they have dividends, or they have ISAs or other savings that they can call on outside of their pension entirely. So if you have these other sources, you need less than the 4% withdrawal potentially. You could take a much lower percentage and still live very comfortably, but the rule doesn't factor any of this into its calculation. It treats everyone as if you're in the same identical situation. Someone with no state pension needs a different approach entirely here. Compared to someone with state pension plus rental income combined, your total income picture matters more than one simple rule. Yet, this rule ignores everyone and everything except your pension pot value. And that takes us to flaws 6 and 7. See, these two final flaws seem to contradict each other at first, but they're both true at the same time in practice. Firstly, for me, the rule is far too rigid for real daily life. It can't adjust when your circumstances change dramatically over your retirement years. You know, what happens if you suddenly need expensive medical treatment or you need to access home care? See, the rules don't let you take more in that urgent situation. And what happens if your roof needs replacing or your boiler breaks down? You know, you can't just stick to one fixed withdrawal amount forever, because life throws unexpected expenses at you constantly throughout your retirement years, just as it did during your working years. So that means that the rule has no flexibility to handle these real situations properly. But here's where the contradiction comes. For many, it's actually too cautious. So the FCA, who are a UK financial regulatory body, in their retirement income market data report shows that many retirees withdraw under the target. What happens is that they die with most of their pension funds still intact. See, they followed cautious withdrawal rules and barely touched their own money. What does that mean? Well, they basically denied themselves enjoyment and experiences they could have easily afforded in their retirement. So this just shows to me why the rule is just too overcautious for how people live in the UK. So especially if you're willing to adjust spending when markets drop temporarily. So let's finish this video by recapping why the 4% rule has serious problems for people retiring in the UK. Firstly, it completely ignores UK fees and taxes on withdrawals. Second, market timing can destroy the strategy before it even starts. Third, using one withdrawal rate forever ignores how spending actually changes through retirement. Fourth, UK life expectancy means much longer retirement periods than were assumed in the original study. Fifth, it doesn't account for state pension or other income streams. And the last two, 6 and 7, it's both too rigid and too cautious together. So these flaws mean you can't just follow this rule blindly. What you need is a realistic approach based on your specific situation. So think about your total income, not just your pension pot value alone. Also think about your health, your spending patterns, and your spending flexibility. With all that, work out a strategy that adapts as circumstances change over time. So the rule might work as a very rough starting point, but as a starting point only. But for me, it should never be your final answer to pension withdrawals. So review your drawdown plan annually with updated portfolio data each year. Your retirement is too important to leave to one American rule. And lastly, get proper advice from a financial advisor that can help you look at your whole financial picture and give you a better steer as to how and when to withdraw your money through your retirement. So if you did like this video, please do give it a like and subscribe to the channel. We've got lots of videos covering the point of getting to retirement and beyond. So finally, good luck and goodbye.